Before we preview the Cowboys vs. Eagles NFL Week 17 game, time to be honest in the comments section. The Cowboys are out of the playoff hunt. They're maybe hurting their draft pick or improving it, depending on a loss or a win. Do you want to beat the Eagles this week? Because none of us like the Eagles anyway. Sound off in the comments section. Y for yes, N for no. The Cowboys are on the road this week against the Philadelphia Eagles. Of note, this is now a 1 p.m. Eastern kick. This game had been flexed out of the 425 nationally televised audience. Now it's an almost nationally televised audience game because the other 1 p.m. games are terrible. Eagles are 9.5-point favorites. Now, that line had initially opened at 10.5 before Sunday Night Football. The Cowboys beat the Bucs in that game, and the Eagles did lose Jalen Hurts to a concussion. The spread still being 9.5 makes me think that Vegas thinks Hurts will play, but we'll check in on that throughout the week. Cowboys defense is playing better. Offense has been better-ish the past couple weeks. This is a top 10 scoring offense and a top 5 scoring defense. Despite a really weird game against the Commanders, the Eagles overall have been one of the best teams in football, but there is the quarterback uncertainty now. Cowboys injuries to watch beyond, CeeDee Lamb battling through the shoulder injury. Jalen Tolbert dislocated that pinky injury that he suffered on that halftime bomb attempt, I should say. Try to get closer field goal shot against the Bucs. Apparently he hyperextended it so bad it broke the skin and needed to be stitched up, but he's got a chance to play apparently. Eric Kendricks, Juanyeh Thomas, Jalen Brooks, TJ Bass, all were questionable or ruled out late in the process. Have a chance to play against the Eagles as well. Kemon Hall, though, suffered a hamstring injury against the Bucs late in the game. Sounds like he will not play at all this week for the Cowboys, and I question if he'll play in the season finale as well. It's also worth monitoring the Eagles' injuries. Jalen Hurts is in concussion protocol. Obviously, there's some weird timing with Christmas and Christmas Eve, and players aren't in the building the same way things normally are, so concussion protocol is going to go on there. We'll see about Jalen Hurts' status. Again, the line makes me think he's going to play. Pickett also suffered a rib injury that he got x-rays for, required more testing on Monday, but we haven't heard any real updates on that. Tanner McKee, who I think might actually be better than Kenny Pickett, is the number 3 quarterback on the roster. There's a giant gap between Jalen Hurts and Kenny Pickett, by the way. That doesn't require a rocket scientist or a football data analyst or whatever. We all know it. One's the starter, one's the backup. So we'll keep an eye on that quarterback spot, but that could potentially drastically impact that game. I don't think you're going to be able to beat Jalen Hurts and the Eagles if they play just an average game. You give Kenny Pickett, you can win that game. That game changed when the Commanders adjusted their defense to not have to worry about the quarterback run and dare Kenny Pickett to beat them and try to stop Saquon Barkley. They couldn't have success through the air on a regular basis. So be honest with me. Who you got in this one? C for the Cowboys, E for the Eagles. Let me know in the comments, the pinned comment, actually, of today's show, if the ad comes here on YouTube. Next up on the keys to victory, or I should say first up on the keys to victory, you need the good version of Cooper Rush. The last 2 games, I think, has been the best football we have seen Cooper Rush play outside of when he was probably a really, really good high school player. 68.8% completion rate. He's got 506 yards, 7.9 yards per attempt, 4 touchdowns, 1 total turnover. In that game, he had his first ever 3-touchdown offensive game for the entire offense in his NFL career. He's only done it once, but he's a backup. It gets him in a field goal range a decent amount and has stopped the turnovers that have been so frustrating. The problem is for Cooper Rush, in the same way your starter kind of owns the entire NFC East, and Hurts and Dak have played 3 times in their careers, unfortunately, which kind of deprives us of some good matchups. Cooper Rush goes from he's kind of playing as like a solid backup. 62.5%, 6.8 yards per attempt, 18 touchdowns, 7 turnovers the rest of his career. He is one of the worst NFL quarterbacks ever against Philadelphia Eagles. Barely at 50%, under 4 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, 5 turnovers. Now that's 2 starts against Philadelphia. And to an extent, this might just be a Cooper Rush against good defenses stat, because that's kind of Philadelphia, Houston this year, and not a lot of other top-end defenses he's faced over the course of his NFL career. Maybe it's just a good defensive stat, but that's not good football. you need the guy you've seen the past 2 weeks and not the one that has really struggled against Philadelphia over the course of his NFL career. So because of that, I would think the Cowboys try to get Rico Dowdle involved again. I didn't mind the game plan against the Bucs to an extent. Sometimes good game plan versus bad game plan comes down to if it works. It worked against Tampa, but Cowboys cannot run the football really. I do think they maybe missed some various players who were in that lineup on the offensive line. Dowdle didn't have his best game. Didn't really do a lot at all. He could have more success against Philadelphia. Success rate's still very high, 4.8 yards per carry. He's almost to the 1,000-yard mark this year. I would bet the Cowboys try to get him a little bit more involved on the ground in this one. Now, today's show is made possible by Z-Biotics. It's the holiday season. If you're at this time of the year, you got Christmas parties, got company parties, holiday parties, New Year's parties as well. You might not respond the same way you used to. That's what Z-Biotics is made for. Pre-alcohol is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. When you drink, it's this byproduct. It's a toxic byproduct that gets converted from alcohol into the gut. It is this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Remember to drink the probiotic before drinking alcohol, drink responsibly, and get a good night's sleep to feel your best tomorrow. Stay in the loop and go to zbiotics.com/chatsports because with this technology, ZBiotics will release different products that have nothing to do with alcohol. Scan the QR code on screen to get 15% off your first order when you use code CHATSPORTS at checkout. You get a subscription with the code so you can stay prepared for another time or the occasion. ZBiotics, backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Head to zbiotics.com/chatsports and use code CHATSPORTS at checkout for 15% off your order. A big thank you to ZBiotics for sponsoring this show and our good times. Number 3, you got to keep doing the same thing you've been doing. The biggest reason why you've been winning games is the dominance by your defense. Since week 10, where the first 9 weeks of the year the Cowboys defense was a bottom 5 unit, they have become a fringe top 10 unit. And the single biggest reason why is the success rates haven't actually changed all that much. Individual successful plays have been pretty consistent for the Cowboys. Haven't drastically adjusted. The biggest reason why, takeaways. That's why you see the success rate both for since week 10 and since week 12 be a little bit closer to league average. It's better now, make no mistake about that, but the EPA per play being so much higher on the dropbacks and the passes is because the Cowboys have forced 12 takeaways in their last 5 games. They have forced 15 takeaways in their last 7 games. In the first 8 games of the season, the Cowboys first forced 6 takeaways. Turns out when you're averaging over 2 takeaways per game instead of less than 1 per game, you're a lot better. The defense has been really good the last few weeks, and takeaways have been a massive factor. You don't take the ball away twice against Tampa, you might have lost that game. Key to victory number 4. It's your kicker, who has been your best player this year because he is a first-team All-Pro, not a doubt in my mind about that. He has been incredible this year. In fact, he has dominated everywhere outside of, frankly, Washington's field for his career. He's missed 4 field goals his entire career outside of the Commander Stadium. He's in Philly. He's fine there. One of them was that 70-yarder he missed. That's one of his 2 misses from 50. That's a 65-yarder. Dude's an alien. And when your offense is getting you around 2 touchdowns per game, the difference becomes when your kicker can get you 14. That ends up being a big difference in these types of games. Finally, they're going to fight for Mike McCarthy again. This team doesn't want Mike to get fired. They have fought for him. Now, that's the minimum to not firing somebody mid-season. Make no mistake about it. But they've battled hard for McCarthy. I think they'll come out and battle hard against Philadelphia again. Question is it going to be more like the first Eagles game where they did fight hard early and they just didn't have the offense to hang. So be honest with me. The low number is 1 here. What is your confidence level in beating the Eagles right now? Scale it for me from 1 to 10 in the comment section of today's show. Let's talk players to watch here. Number 1 is Cooper Beebe, the center. He has been much better and has really shown some promising growth over the last few weeks. Now, the sack numbers are still a little bit high for a center. You don't want to have more than a couple over the course of a season. First 6 weeks of the year, he's at about a 55.4 PFF grade. Since week 7, he's at 71.6. Of note, that is top 7 in the NFL among centers. Young player, got better. Not the most crazy thing. Got to continue against a pretty good Eagles interior defensive line this week. Number 2 is Kevontae Turpin. And I like what they've done with Turpin. I don't know why it took 15 weeks of the season to go, hey, remember that stuff we used at training camp where we put Turpin in the backfield? Let's try that in a real game. I don't know why they haven't tried it out more. I'm now waiting for the next spins off of that where they run a screen to Kevontae Turpin out of the backfield. Could do one of the play action screens too. You do a wheel route with Kevontae Turpin out of the backfield. Try an angle route with him. I don't know why it took so long to do it, but I'm glad they're doing it finally. He's a dynamic football player. And given the rest of your receiving core, he's one of the most electric guys on the field. Scheme some stuff up for him. Mike, prove to me you can scheme for CeeDee Lamb and Kevontae Turpin for the same game for an entire game, because I haven't seen that happen yet. I've seen Lamb for a first half and Turpin for a half, not both together. Now, our next live show will be Sunday. Not doing the Thursday live show because it's the holiday season, taking some time off. We will be live on Sunday for the Cowboys-Eagles game. Subscribe so you don't miss out. Mazi Smith, as the Cowboys' run defense has held running backs to around 4 yards per carry the last couple weeks here, really since around week 10. Get that in a second. Mazi Smith's play has been upgraded. First 9 weeks of the year, wasn't good. 32.7 PFF grade. Since then, 60.5 and a 70.5 run defense grade. It's not an accident. It is not a coincidence that Mazi Smith has played better right as the Cowboys' run defense statistically starts to improve a lot more, especially against running backs. They've still had some issues with mobile quarterbacks. I'm not going to blame a defensive tackle for that. That's not really his job when the quarterbacks are almost always on the outside. Mazi's played a lot better. Hopefully that continues. Number 4, Amani Oruwariye, the corner. The Eagles kind of figured some stuff out the last time these two teams played. They picked on the corner that wasn't healthy. They picked on the number 2 corner in that game. They Cowboys didn't have to run Bland. They threw at Trayvon Diggs one time in that game. That one time was an interception. I would not be surprised if it ends up being a similar game plan against the Cowboys. Whoever Bland is on, not going to throw to him. And they will look at the other guy, whether it's Devonta Smith or A.J. Brown, and throw it to him if he's up against the Amani Oruwariye. They'll do 11 personnel stuff. That's what I would do if I were the Eagles trying to attack through the air. So Amani O started last week, going to be counted on big time because he's going to get picked on, I think. Give me your score prediction of the Cowboys against the Eagles. You can let me know in the comment section of today's show. We'll get to my score prediction at the end of today's video. Player to watch, number 5, Maurice Liufau. He got the green dot and has stepped up the last 2 weeks, and I really appreciate that. The green dot, by the way, being you're the signal caller on defense with Eric Kendricks out. Chance Kendricks is back this week, but this is what you want to see in a season that's over. See your young guys showcase what they're able to do and give you confidence that I have a building block here for next season. Because if Liufau had struggled, you might have been in the market for 2 linebackers to start until Overshown gets back. Liufau's played pretty well. He can be one of your starters this upcoming season. My score prediction, though, look, I don't trust this offense against the Eagles led by Cooper Rush. Hope I'm wrong about it. I think the defense is going to keep you in this game for a while. I reserve the right to change my mind if Jalen Hurts does not play. This is my Hurts score prediction. Got the Eagles 24, Cowboys 13.